and that lies about the threats that we supposedly pose. Because the one thing that we do threaten the Americans with is our decency, our inclusion, and our belief in the rule of law. So we have many American friends, we have many American relatives, we have many American communities that we love and would love to visit again, but we are not going there as long as you are not under the rule of law.
Oof, he's back. Former Canadian Member of Parliament Charlie Angus just delivered an incredible speech from Ottawa. You gotta hear the whole thing. You're not gonna want to miss this. I think that Angus, again, former Canadian Member of Parliament, has been delivering the most powerful speeches in Canada and frankly across the world in terms of international leaders, just calling out what the American fascist regime is. Here's Charlie Angus. Watch it. It's not all that long. Then let's talk about it. Let's play the full speech.
Earlier this week, Homeland Security Director Kristi Noem held a forum in Michigan on the so-called threat of the northern border. The northern border, that's us, Canada. She presented this lurid presentation of rape and murder, Salvadorian gangs coming over the Canadian border to terrorize the American people. She was joined by Michigan Representative John James, who said that Michigan is now at the epicenter of the northern border crisis. And one of her officials reassured the American people that they were here to, quote, kick some ass. So whose ass are you going to kick? Ever since Donald Trump declared that Canada was a threat to national security last February, the rhetoric against our nation has been escalating. FBI Director Kash Patel claims that Canada is a source for all kinds of international cabals of Russian, Iranian, Chinese gangs who are heading over the border. He claims that of the 300 terrorists that he says he caught, 85% came from Canada. But were they wearing toques and lumberjack jackets? Then there's Ted Cruz, who says that Canada could be a staging ground for Hamas terrorism. Why? Because we accepted a very small percentage of people fleeing the genocide in Gaza. The likes of Patel and Noem are not there to present facts or to meet with Canadian officials about securing the border for both sides. This is about building a narrative. This is how MAGA operates. And we've seen this right-wing playbook used so many times. This is not about gaslighting. It's about creating a convenient enemy, an existential threat that must be dealt with. What is it going to be next? Are they going to claim that they found weapons of mass destruction in a garage in Charlottetown or Oakville? South Park, the movie, was funny, but South Park as a political administration is a dismal thing to witness. And this is all happening when Donald Trump threatens us. We're either going to pay billions in new tariffs or what? Give up our sovereignty, give up our nation? Well, that's not going to happen. So I'm here this morning to actually reach out to Kristi Noem and Kash Patel and Ted Cruz and MAGA Ambassador Pete Hoekstra and any Fox host who wants to weigh in on the Canadian border to reassure them. Canada is very concerned about the border as well. In fact, we're so concerned that we refuse to travel across it. And your increasing rhetoric against us is making us more determined not to spend a dime in any of your towns, your states, or your country. So let's talk about the state of the Canadian boycott right now. We see that wine sales from the United States to Canada, your number one market, America, is down 93%. That we've seen a $12.3 billion loss in American tourism. So when Representative James says the epicenter of the threat is Canada, I think he should go talk to some of his tourism operators who are seeing massive losses from Canada. Our refusal to cross the border isn't about fear. It is because we will not stoop to give money to a country that is no longer under the rule of law, where kidnapping people off the streets has become normalized. If you look at the biggest hits that are being faced by the United States in terms of Canadian refusal to spend dollars, number one is Florida. Yeah, the Florida that's talking about building an alligator Alcatraz. A Florida where states officials threaten to shoot people graveyard dead if they protest. That might sound great for MAGA, but Canadians find that language intolerable and inexcusable, And so, Mr. Ron DeSantis, no, we're not going to spend money in your state. I want to close by speaking to the American representatives who've been coming to Canada on a charm offensive to get us to come back. Senator Kevin Cramer of North Dakota, who said to Canadians, give us another chance. Really, Senator? I haven't heard you say anything to people like Kristi Noem or Kash Patel. When are you going to start speaking out to them? Or Senator Tim Kaine, who came to Ottawa and said, Canada, we love you. Well, if you loved us, you'd make sure that our citizens didn't have to worry that their phones are going to be seized at the border and whether or not there's pictures making fun of Donald Trump and whether or not they're going to be arrested and deported. Because if you're not willing to love us for the fact that we believe in the rule of law, then you don't love us. Or Governor Maura Healey, who came to meet our premiers and said, Canada is Massachusetts' #1 trading partner. Yes, we are, but we're not going back. Or to all the towns that are renaming their streets after Canadian place names in Canada. Thanks, but no thanks. If you loved us, you would love us for our values. What we're seeing right now is a nation that doesn't believe in equity and inclusion or under the rule of law. Those are our values. That's why our Prime Minister, Carney, is over in Europe talking about our new future as being part of Europe and no longer part of the United States. So finally, Ms. Noem, if you were hoping to make sure a big splash of threatening us and warning about the crisis of the northern border, you've done a damn good job of reminding us why we're not going back to your country. Canadians are not going to give a dime to a nation that threatens us, that undermines us, and that lies about the threats that we supposedly pose. Because the one thing that we do threaten the Americans with is our decency, our inclusion, and our belief in the rule of law. So we have many American friends, we have many American relatives, we have many American communities that we love and would love to visit again, but we are not going there as long as you are not under the rule of law. And as for Canada, we will remain true, north, strong, and free.
Told you that was super powerful. Oh, by the way, there was a moment at the beginning of the speech as well where Charlie Angus acknowledged the fact that a Canadian who was living in the United States died in ICE custody. Let me just show you that. Let's play it.
Good morning. Bonjour, Wache. I'd like to begin by expressing my deep concern over the news of the death of Johnny Noviello, found dead in ICE custody, a man who had moved to the United States from Canada when he was 11 years old, who apparently had a drug conviction that was covered off by community service and time off for good behavior, that ICE was aware of his medical conditions, and yet he was found dead in their custody.
Now, I had the opportunity to speak with Charlie Angus after he delivered that speech, and I asked him what he would say to Donald Trump if Trump was watching this. Listen to what Angus has to say. Frankly, a message that I know really represents, by and large, the Canadian view of things, and I think the international view of things. Here, play this clip.
Well, Donald, no offense, but you're getting really tiresome. Nobody believes you anymore. You stomp your feet. You threaten mass action. We saw you demand regime change, and the next day you pulled the General Taco routine, and you were begging Iran and Israel to come back to the table and stop fighting after you poured gasoline. This does not look like a leader who's in charge of the free world or a leader who's in charge of anything. So you were threatening us. You've always threatened us. Your officials are ramping up their rhetoric against us. It only makes us more determined. Is this going to be a long, tough, hard slog? Yes. Our job's going to be lost? Yes. We get that as Canadians. What you need to explain, Donald, is why you've left the United States weaker, more isolated, left your people more frightened, a sense that they don't belong if they travel anywhere in the world. I'm hearing from people around the world about American travelers. American travelers are still welcome in Canada as long as, hey, just don't wear a MAGA hat. But you've left the American people dangerously isolated. And as long as your officials are making outrageous claims that Canada is the terrorist threat, that Canada is the problem for your gangs, that Canada's border is the biggest issue you've got to deal with, you are obviously not dealing with the real issues that the American people voted for you. So it's going to be what it's going to be, Donald. Just get off social media for a while. If you want to come back to the table and negotiate your digital services tax or anything else, hey, we're ready. But if you're not, we're moving on.
Yeah, so refreshing to hear from Charlie Angus like that. And I know across the world, as I speak to the Midas Down Under or the Midas Mate in Australia, whether I speak to Midas fans throughout Europe and Mexico, Central America, South America, Africa, throughout the world, I hear the same thing. I know everybody's looking for strong leaders who will stand up to Donald Trump. And I think that people in countries across the world are willing to make sacrifices in the interest of national sovereignty to push back against the Trump regime, even if there is some short-term pain or even medium-term pain. Living in a world run by authoritarians like Trump and Putin, that can't be the future for our future generations, right? Finally, here's what Charlie Angus said to me as well about again, Donald Trump trying to label Canada like a terrorist haven and more of Trump's 51st state rhetoric. Listen to what Charlie had to tell me. Play this clip.
Well, this is so true. I mean, he came to the G7, a moment when world leaders came together to try and sort of put some stability in a destabilized world. Instead, we got Donald Trump, who blew the whole thing up and then scrammed out of Canada before he had to confront President Zelensky. Then he went to NATO in Brussels. Again, another key point where the European allies were trying to secure with the world some level of stability with the increasing violence we are seeing in Israel, Gaza, Iran, the situation with Russia. And Donald Trump came in and lit gasoline all over the place and then walked out. So in those, what you saw in between those two pivotal international summits was that Canada said, well, wait a minute, we've got to find a future. And it's not with this guy and it's not with the United States. You know, we have American officials hosting meetings claiming that Canada is some kind of terrorist haven. They're saying that we're sending massive gangs of El Salvadorians over the Canadian border. I mean, I'm sorry. You've ever visited Canada? Could you show us where we have our El Salvadorian gangs? I mean, I think what next? They're going to find weapons of mass destruction in a bunker in some nice leafy suburb in Canada. The language that Trump is using against Canada is actually having a hugely detrimental effect on American businesses because Canadians are pulling out. Canadians are not traveling there. So I don't know what Prime Minister Carney will do in response to this latest temper tantrum by President Taco. Certainly, you know, when we see that he's throwing around issues like non-existent threats like dairy, it's more of his bad theater, but we've seen the show so many times. We know the punchlines. It's not funny. Nobody gets upset. So I think Canada's just going to have to do what it's going to do. We'll probably have to go back pound for pound, dollar for dollar in trade retaliations as we watch the American economy get weaker and more unsure, because who is going to invest right now? Who's going to start moving product for the American economy when Donald Trump is blowing things up every chance he can get?
Well, folks, I'll give you this teaser as well. Charlie Angus and I have some big announcements that we're going to be rolling out in the next few weeks, maybe sooner. So stay tuned. Maple Midas, I know that this is the one that you've been waiting for. So I'll leave you with that teaser right there. Hit subscribe, help us get to 6 million subscribers, and thanks for watching.
Can't get enough Midas? Check out the Midas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.